The LA Clippers are coming off their worst loss of the season thus far against a tanking Oklahoma City Thunder team. They will be playing them again on Thursday. What are the keys for them to bounce back? I'm going to be talking about those on today's Locked On Clippers.
You are Locked On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, sir. You are locking in with the Clips. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day, your team every day. I'm your host, starting my 18th season as a Clipper fan, Darian Vaziri. Also have my own social media and YouTube channel called Dime Dropper. You can subscribe on YouTube and, of course, follow me on all social media platforms at Twitter and Instagram at Dime Dropper Pod. Go live after Clipper and Laker games, and, of course, film game day vlogs when I attend games, and also make NBA content as a whole. For today's episode, first, I want you to comment on the YouTube channel because it's the fastest way to grow the show. Comment on the YouTube channel what your main key is and what you want to see mainly in the Thursday game against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Obviously, the Clippers just got destroyed against Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and his Oklahoma City Thunder on Tuesday night, 94-108 in an abysmal performance where they absolutely collapsed in the second half, particularly the third quarter. So what are the keys to bouncing back to that game? Now, the obvious thing right off the bat, I'm going to be talking about, though, the keys I got are the starting backcourt, the small ball lineup, and how the Clippers need to stop getting exploited so badly in it. And lastly, the basics, the effort, the focus. But let's start out with what I think is right now the major problem with the Clippers in terms of individual players, and that is the starting backcourt, which has been Reggie Jackson and Norman Powell to start the season. Now, going into this game, you're just going to hope that Paul George will play. Kawhi Leonard is out. He came back here to Los Angeles after the little discomfort he was feeling. He was set to play on Tuesday and did not, which is a very tough thing to hear as a Clipper fan. You just don't want to hear a new setback. You don't want to hear something that's going to push him back, and destroy the schedule that he had. But I don't think it's that serious. I think he'll be okay and play very soon. But it's just a minor setback. It's still not good to hear when the Clippers are trying to get that chemistry rolling and not trying to have any setbacks, trying to work Kawhi Leonard back in as much as they can. But the Clippers built this roster for reasons like this, for games like today where they need to come out and get a win despite not having their main men. And hopefully it's just the main man, Kawhi Leonard, that's out. Marcus Morris Sr. is also going to be out, still dealing with personal reasons, probably in regards to his father passing away. So again, we wish the best for Marcus Morris and the Morris family in that. But Paul George is questionable as of this episode's recording. Hopefully he will play, because if he does, that's obviously a huge game changer for the Clippers. The one game where Paul George played and Kawhi Leonard did not this year against the Sacramento Kings was maybe the best performance of the season for the Clippers thus far. I'd have to say it was. And Paul George had 40 points. So if Paul George can play against the Thunder and be the best player on the court, that increases the Clippers' chances of winning tenfold. But to talk about the starting backcourt, Reggie Jackson and Norman Powell have been tough to start the season, and not in the good way. They've both been average on defense. In Reggie's case, not great. Norman's been average at best. So neither of them have done too much on that side of the ball to warrant their starting position. Reggie Jackson is starting over John Wall right now, and he's starting because of fit purposes, because he has played for the Clippers for 3.5 years now, and because he's a better catch-and-shoot player and has worked with Kawhi and Paul George. Well, thus far, he's had 3 bad games out of 4. 2 of them were played without Kawhi Leonard. And his best game his only good game came against Sacramento, where he was 3 of 3 from deep and 4 of 5 from the field. But the problem with Reggie Jackson, to me, is I think last game, in the Thunder game, he was a little bit more efficient with his dribbles. He took better shots, but he just didn't make them. Simple fact is, Reggie Jackson, he may be injured with that groin injury. He needs to sit if he's not 100%. Because if he's not 100%, he's a liability to the team. But let's say he's going to play on Thursday. He needs to make shots. It's really that simple. I think just making shots is going to kickstart everything else. His effort on defense is going to be higher. He needs to hit his shots. He needs to hit his shots coming off screens, his floaters, his layups, his mid-ranges when they're in drop coverage, his three ball. He just needs to make his shots, and the other thing he needs to do is not overcomplicate things. Don't need to over-dribble. Don't need to dilly-dally on the ball. Move it quickly and make moves. He also needs to be aggressive. When teams switch everything, if we don't have Kawhi Marcus Morris, let's say we don't have Paul George either, there's only a couple players on this team that are going to be reliable and trying to create shots in isolation. And that's Norman Powell and Reggie Jackson, who have not proven to be reliable thus far this season in that category, but they're the only ones on the team that can do that. Terrence Mann's not going to go isolation. Luke Kennard's not an ISO player, even though he's showing more off the bounce. Now, I would consider throwing the ball to Ivica Zubac in the post and trying to make him more of a go-to guy. Because the way he has started this season, he deserves some of those touches. He deserves to try to get fed in that way. Because he doesn't have a bad right-handed jump hook. The only issue I have with throwing Zoo the ball is he gets no respect from officials. That's the part that really gets me angry. He gets zero respect from officials, but I still think it's worth the shot. Because as I said, Amir Coffey, the only other player is John Wall, really. And John Wall's creeping up on Reggie Jackson's tail. If I were Ty Lue, I would just start John Wall today for the Thursday game. But I don't think he's going to do that to try to not hurt Reggie's confidence. And also because John Wall is still restricted. And that's the thing. John Wall is still restricted. So Reggie Jackson needs to play better. And Reggie Jackson is the cult hero. He's been here for years. He needs to play better. He has no excuse not to play well. It's not like he's learning a bunch of new teammates. He needs to play better. Simple as that. And I think it just starts with making shots and just making smarter decisions. I mean, last game, let's look at his season numbers right now. 8 points a game. So he went from 7 to 8 in the last game. 8 points a game for him in 26 minutes of play. He's shooting 30.6% and 36% from deep. So the 36% from deep is because of that Sacramento game. But he's shooting 30.6% from the field and turning the ball over 2 times a night. That is just not acceptable, really. In the last game, it's 23.5% from the field shooting the ball, 9 points. It's just not good enough. So Reggie Jackson is going to have to be better. And he still turned the ball over 3 times. As for Norman Powell, maybe the most disappointing player so far. Actually, not maybe. He has been the most disappointing player thus far for the Clippers. After having such an incredible season in the short game, it was like 3 or 4 games he played for I think it was 5 games and then the 2 playing games. 7 games that he played for the Clippers in last season. He was looking like a creator. He was hitting shots from mid-range. He was shooting shots from 3. He was getting to the basket. He was getting to the foul line, which he still has done a decent job of this season. That's the only thing. His defense in the last game was okay. It looked a little bit better. But off the ball, it's not good. He needs to be alert and needs to be better rotating. His on-ball defense has not been bad, but he needs to rotate better. He needs to be sharper. The whole team needs to be sharper. But offensively, Norman Powell has just been abysmal. 7 points a game, considering all the players out for the Clippers and the restrictions that they're on in terms of minutes. He needs to be averaging 17, 18 points a night. This is what he was averaging last season for the Clippers. And his shooting splits have been abysmal, and I think that he's in his own head right now. I think he came out pressing a little bit, trying to thinking to himself, this team has a lot of weapons. I need to still have a good individual season. He talked about being an all-star before this season. That statement looks laughable right now. And there's still a lot of time to right the ship. But I don't want Norman Powell. He's not going to be an all-star, first of all, and I don't want him even thinking about that stuff. He needs to help this team win basketball games and win the championship. He's shooting 27% from the field right now. 27%. And 8% from 3. I'm not stuttering on that, and I'm not messing that up. 8.3% from 3. There is no way the Clippers are going to win shorthanded like that. And it's very simple what he needs to do. He is neglecting the in-between game when he's coming off of screens. The mid-range 18-footer, the floater, I know he has one. I know he has a little runner. He is neglecting it and just driving into the teeth of the defense, and he is losing the ball. He's jump passing last minute. It's all nasty. He needs to be smarter. He needs to calm down a little bit, and he needs to make his open shots. If he starts making his open threes, that will do a lot for him and a lot for his confidence. And it's been 4 bad games in a row for Norman Powell. You could argue the Suns game wasn't terrible. He needs to step up. If he does not step up, the Clippers are not going to be able to win games with this kind of shorthanded lineup. He needs to step up, point blank, end of story. The starting backcourt is where it begins. But coming up, I am going to be talking about more of a collective flaw right now in the Clippers and what they need to improve on. That is the small ball lineup that has been so good in years past, or should I say last year? Yeah, years past, 2021 and last year. But why hasn't it worked so far this season? I am going to be talking about that coming up. Tonight, I am taking Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to have 20-plus points, more than 5 rebounds, and more than 5 assists. And where I'm doing that is Prize Picks. It's a daily fantasy entry app. It's not sports gambling. You make entries on it, and all you got to do is pick 2 to 5 players and predict if they will score more or less than the Prize Picks projection. You can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. It's not competing against other people, just you versus the projections available. And Prize Picks offers projections on any sport that you watch. That's the NBA, NFL, MLB, NHL, PGA, college football, men's college basketball that's really close to starting. Anything. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. They're safe and fast withdrawals and currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. Just download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive an 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter the promo code LOCKEDON in all caps at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. That is Locked On in all caps. Thanks for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day. For your second listen today, check out Locked On Sports Today. From the games that matter to the most to the biggest stories in sports. Go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today. It's available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. So back to the Clippers. One thing that's really been detrimental so far this season has been the small ball lineup that Ty Lewis said is going to kill teams. And now all Clipper fans have been glorifying the last 2 years after we saw it be used mainly to play Rudy Gobert off the floor in the 2021 Western Conference semifinals. And we've seen it at various times against certain big men after that. But there was one issue going into the season that I talked about at length. Do the Clippers need a backup big? And right now it looks like the answer is yes. Because even though the Clippers have that small ball unit, so far they're not getting it done on the glass. And that's the main thing with the small ball unit. And I said it so many times. Rebounding. No rebounds, no rings. That was something that did the Clippers in more than anything in the conference finals against the Suns. Everybody wants to point at the fact that Kawhi Leonard didn't play, but you're forgetting why the Clippers actually lost the series, because the series was still there for the taking. That's the funniest part. But Clipper fans and myself have said if we had Kawhi, we would have won, because we weren't supposed to beat the Suns without Kawhi. And Marcus Morris Sr. wasn't 100%. Ivica Zubac missed a couple games in that series too, and so did Chris Paul, but they played better without Chris Paul, funny enough. But rebounding was what did the Clippers in Game 4. And that was the game that they needed to win to tie the series and make it a little more competitive. And so the small ball lineup with Robert Covington or Nico Batum at the 5, they're not 7-footers. They're like 6'9" guys. They need to rebound, though. And everyone needs to rebound. That's the thing. It's not just Robert Covington and Nico Batum, because here's the problem with the small ball lineup. When the Clippers go small, and they're going to go small again in this Thursday night game against the Thunder, you're going to go with switch everything. The point is you have more guards and wings to switch everything, because usually in today's game, there aren't any true big men that are going to post you up and take advantage of size. We saw that, though, against Jock Landale of the Suns. He actually went into the low post and even scored an N1 on Paul George at one point. The Thunder didn't really show anybody like that in their first game against the Clippers, but they did show the ability to kill the Clippers on the glass and get easy baskets when there was no rim protection with Zubac on the bench. And Robert Covington and Nico Batum are solid rim protectors for wing players, but they need to be sharp. And what I mean by sharp is when you play that switch everything unit, you need to stay in front of your man. You know what I'm saying? Because they're going to switch screens and Clippers are going to switch screens and force the other team to play isolation. If that's the case, they need to stay in front of their man. I'm confident that Terrence Mann and Amir Coffey can stay in front. I'm confident from what I've seen from John Wall that he can stay in front. Nico Batum and Robert Covington are better help defenders, better weak side rotators than on-ball defenders at this stage of their careers. Nico Batum is a little bit slower and old. He's still a good defender on the ball, but he needs to be a little sharper. But the main thing is the rebounding. The rebounding was a real issue so far in these small ball lineups. The Clippers got eaten alive by the Phoenix Suns and Jock Landale in the third game of the season. And the Thunder game, it was just awful in terms of the rebounding disparity. I'm going to look it up right now just to remind you guys. 47 rebounds for the Clippers, 60 for the Thunder, 7 offensive rebounds for the Clippers, and 21 for the Thunder. When you're getting out-rebounded on the offensive glass by 3 times your own amount, that is pathetic. A lot of that is effort, but you need to box out. And what the small ball lineup does is when you switch everything, it causes a guy like Luke Kennard to be on a guy like Alex Pokashevsky, who's like 7 feet tall or 6'11". And even though you switch on him for a reason because he's not a beefy post-up Luke Kennard, take advantage of that size kind of guy, but he still has a size advantage. Luke Kennard, John Wall, everybody that's in, they need to box out. They need to be aggressive on the glass. They need to fight. Because if they don't rebound out of this small ball lineup, the Clippers need to go out and get a backup big or play Moussa Diabate. Because one thing I've noticed about other teams is they're going to play a backup big. The Lakers, for example, the first team the Clippers played, had Damian Jones. The Sacramento Kings had Rashawn Holmes. The Suns had Jock Landale. The Oklahoma City Thunder had, Mike Muscala was their backup big, but he's not a real big. He's a stretch big, so he's not a big deal. But the Clippers still got killed on the glass. So they're going to need to do much better on the glass. That's one thing you got to look at for the small ball lineup. And then another thing for the small ball lineup. Teams are going to switch everything on the Clippers when they go small because they don't have anybody that's going to take advantage of size, a la Ivica Zubac. So that means the Clippers' best creators, and it goes back to what I was just saying in the first segment, need to create off the bounce because they're going to switch everything, and that kills all the good open looks we can get off screens and the ball movement. You know, a lot of NBA fans don't seem to realize that teams go isolation when other teams switch everything because it takes away their advantage in the pick and roll. Teams create good shots and open looks and swinging the ball so well because of the pick and roll offense, spread pick and roll offenses in today's game that make teams have to pick their poison if they don't switch everything. The reason why teams switch everything is to blow up the advantage because let me just talk a little bit of X's and O's, right? Let's say my name is Reggie Jackson and Ivica Zubac is setting me a screen. If Zubac sets a good screen and his man doesn't step up, I'm walking into a jump shot. I'm walking into a floater. Let's say he does step up. Classic pick and roll. You step up. Look who I got waiting for me on the roll. Zoo for a dunk. Now, let's say they take away both of those looks. Zubac's man steps up and takes away Reggie Jackson's shot. And then somebody guarding one of the other 3 players rotates at the basket for Zoo. You know who's open? Whoever he left in the corners. And because the offenses are so spread out today, it makes the reads easier for the on-ball decision makers. Now, teams are closing out. You're swinging the ball. You got the defense in rotation. Everybody's getting good looks. The ball's moving. Everyone's happy. Now, let's say you teams switch everything. Now Reggie Jackson's playing one-on-one against the center or Zubac is against the point guard. But the thing is, teams are not going to switch that pick and roll because of that exact reason I just said, those mismatches I just described. But when Robert Covington's setting a screen for Norman Powell, they're going to switch because Robert Covington's not going to take advantage on the offensive glass or post somebody up. So that means Norman Powell and these guys need to target the weaker defenders on the other team and go at them. If I'm the Clippers, I'm putting Mike Muscala in the pick and roll every time he's in the game today. Every single time, especially with Paul George. But those are the 2 big things you got to look at. The rebounding in the small ball lineup and the shot creation. It's gone very stagnant at times, and they need to have their best creators doing good things off the dribble in that second unit. But coming up, I'm going to close out with just talking about some things that you can control every single night. You can't always make your shots. Sometimes you don't take care of the ball, but you should take care of the ball. But there's something you can always control, and I am going to be talking about what that is coming up. Okay, to close out the show, there's a couple of things. Paul George, still the status is uncertain about the game on Thursday. It would be really, really nice if the Clippers can get him back and he performs like the best player on the court. Because I think one of the biggest keys for the Clippers with winning games without Kawhi Leonard is going to be winning games winning games without Kawhi Leonard. I think a lot of it's going to come down to Paul George performing like the best player on the court. He did exactly that against Sacramento, and the Clippers won. And even though that wasn't easy to be the best player on the court that night, De'Aaron Fox was awesome, and he's been off to a scorching start to the season. Played well, and I watched some of the extended highlights of the Kings-Warriors game the night after, the night the Clippers played the Suns, and De'Aaron Fox looked great again. But Paul George outplayed him. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander falls into that similar boat to De'Aaron Fox. They're both Kentucky boys. They obviously play very differently, but they're both, taller than the average, young point guard. In De'Aaron Fox's case, he may not be taller than the average, but his long arms and athleticism make him look taller. But De'Aaron Fox was drafted in 2017, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was drafted in 2018 from Kentucky. So they just missed each other by a year. SGA has improved so much. It's unbelievable. By the way, Josh Giddey's status is still uncertain for today's game as well. I am not sure if he will play, but I would expect him to play. Because prepare for the worst. Prepare for the toughest battle you're going to have. And a major key, in my opinion, for the Clippers in this game, make somebody besides Shai Gilgeous-Alexander beat you. That doesn't mean blitz him on every screen or double team him every time he touches the ball. But if I'm Ivica Zubac, I'm stepping up on that pick and roll and drop coverage, and I am getting somebody to rotate at the rim and forcing them to pass to one of the shooters. Because their three-point shot was abysmal last game. They shot like 4 for 30. Make those other guys beat you from the outside. Do not let Shai Gilgeous-Alexander get going. And then when the Clippers go small, switch everything and don't be afraid to double him if he drives. Make someone else beat you. Because they don't have the supporting cast that the Clippers have. But if Paul George plays and outplays SGA, advantage Clippers, they are very likely going to win the game. Because in my opinion, if Shai Gilgeous-Alexander plays like the best player on the floor, I think in any NBA game, if you have the best player on the floor, you have a chance. Because if the game's close, that best player can either create a really good shot or score for himself. And NBA players are great, NBA stars are great, and one person in the game of basketball can impact the game so much. As you can see, when the Clippers miss Kawhi Leonard, how he really can impact the game so much, just being one guy. There's only 5 guys on the court. One guy is already 20% of the team on the court. But the thing I was talking about that the Clippers can control, no matter if their shot's falling or not, effort for 4 quarters, attention to detail. You got to come out with a good start. Clippers against the Lakers in the first quarter, it wasn't a great start. Yeah, they led by like 12 points after the first. That's because the Lakers were so abysmal in the end of the first. Sacramento, average in the first. Phoenix, abysmal. Oklahoma City, average. They got to come out hitting shots. They got to come out with a good start. But see, that's not something you can control, hitting shots early. But what you can control is your defensive effort. The defensive effort has been very average so far from the Clippers. And even though the numbers say that they're one of the better defensive teams in the league right now, they need to be even better. Because they're not playing very good teams right now. Besides the Suns, the Kings are 0, they start 0-3. They're a very improved team. They're a solid team. They're a spunky team. But they're not one of the best teams in the league, in the West either. The Lakers are 0-4 as I'm recording this right now. The Oklahoma City Thunder were 0-3 heading into the last game. The Clippers' defense needs to be even better, and that's attention to detail to start the game, fighting over screens and talking. Really, it's just the talking, the attention to detail, the focus. And then turning the ball over. That really gets teams going when you turn the ball over early. Take care of the ball. One thing you can always control is your effort level and taking care of the ball. Take care of the ball and play hard for 4 quarters. Emphasis on 4 quarters. Not just 1 quarter, not just 2 quarters, not just 3 quarters, 4 quarters. Cannot lose focus. I always use the phrase championship teams don't lose 2 games in a row because it pisses them off so much. They lose 1 game. They would never lose 2 games in a row. The Clippers have already failed that test. They cannot lose 3 games in a row. And losing 2 games to Oklahoma City this season would be a disaster. But losing 2 games to them both in Oklahoma City back-to-back is an even bigger disaster. I don't care who's not playing. They need to get the job done because they're the better team. And these are the games when you look back at the schedule 5 months, 6 months from now, and everyone's saying it's early right now, right? But when you lose to a team like Denver and you're playing, let's say Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are like fully healthy, no restriction, and they just naturally lose to Denver because they're a good team in Denver, You're going to say, oh, well, the Denver's a good team. It's still going to take Kawhi and Paul George some time to fully mesh with this new team. All that stuff you're going to say, right? It's going to be these games when you look back at the schedule. OKC, Clippers should win. That would make the difference. And by the way, I want to give everybody some statistics on the 60-win thing, right? So the Clippers are obviously 2-2 to start the season. To get my 60-win mark, they're going to have to win 58 more games, obviously. And that's looking very, very bleak considering the approach that the Clippers are having for Kawhi and John Wall and their players. I wonder when we're going to see a minutes increase for John Wall. Kawhi Leonard's not playing on Thursday, but if we can see a minutes increase for John Wall on Thursday, that would be really nice. But I took a statistic, right? Not counting the 2 lockout seasons and the 2 shortened seasons by COVID, 2020 and 2021, there have been 78 teams in NBA history to win 60 games. 78. Only 15 of them, 19%, didn't make the conference finals. So 82% of teams that won 60 games have made the conference finals. 47% of them have made the finals. And 36% of 60-win teams went on to win the championship. So the odds are very high if you win 60 games. But that seems like more of a pipe dream at this point. Now, I looked at a new statistic, a more reasonable target. There have only been 5 teams in the history of the NBA, the 69 Celtics, and by the way, after the NBA increased their schedule to 80 games or more, so that's starting with the 1961-62 season. So out of 57 NBA seasons that were 80 games or more, only 5 teams have won the NBA title winning less than 52 games. The 69 Celtics with Bill Russell riding out into the sunset, the 75 Warriors, the 77 Blazers, the 78 Bullets, and the last one was, I think, maybe the Rockets. Maybe the Rockets. It's funny because the Warriors had one of the lowest win totals last season when they won. But the magic number I saw was 52 games or more. 52 of the 50, funny it's 52. 52 of the 57 teams that won the NBA championship in 80 games or more seasons were 52-win teams or more. So that's the number for the Clippers. They got to at least get to me. And I think that could guarantee a top 3 seed, but we'll see. It's a little early to start looking at that kind of stuff. 1 game tonight against the Thunder on Thursday. Clippers need to win it. And of course, I'll be posting a Friday episode after the game, and of course going live on my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, immediately after the game for a live post-game reaction. It will be fiery if the Clippers don't win. It will be a sense of relief if the Clippers do win. And to follow me, you got to go to subscribe on YouTube at Dime Dropper, and of course to follow me on social media at Dime Dropper Pod, Twitter and Instagram, and to subscribe to Locked On Clippers. We are close to hitting 1,000 subscribers. And comment on today's question. What's your main key for the Clippers to win against Oklahoma City on Thursday? What is it? Give me what you want to see. But that's it for me tonight, or that's it for me today, guys. Remember, Locked On Sports Today. I am going to remind you, thank you for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day. But for your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. You already know the deal. It's the age-old proverb, go Clippers. Time to bounce back. 2 straight losses, can't have a third.